Cameron Chadukian here, and what I'm going to share with you in this video is my memory of the very first interview I did as a software engineer. So we got to go all the way back to 2019. I'd been August or July, I think July 2019. I'd been learning code for almost a year, and at the time I was living in Ho Chi Minh City. And this, how would you call it? This director of a Japanese outsourcing company, he reached out to me, and he'd reached out to me about a month before, but I had to go back to the US to visit family. And, at the time I was pretty much broke as a joke. So half visiting family, half seeking shelter somewhere that was free. But when I came back to Ho Chi Minh City, it was time. I could line up this interview, and so there I went from District 7 to District 1. We had a interview right in the heart of District 1, which is basically the main area, the main city center of Ho Chi Minh City. And I remember I think I was wearing my purple dress shirt, and I went to the interview. It was a nice office building, and at the time I just knew HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and I knew very, very, very basic React. Like, at the time, the only thing I'd ever built in React was a meme generator, and that was, I'm pretty sure, one of the pet projects or course projects in the Scrimba course, the Learn React Scrimba course at the time. So in other words, I would have been lucky to get an internship at most places. My level as a dev was very, very poor at the time. I was basically a student, but I didn't have a degree, so I wasn't in a great place. At least I didn't have a computer science degree or a tech degree. I had a business degree, but that's unrelated. But anyway, I went to my first interview. The director was waiting for me downstairs, and then we went up to, I don't remember, maybe floor 5 or so, and I went in the office. I took a right, and I went in this conference room, and in the conference room there was the director, there was a Vietnamese guy who had to have also been about my age, so at the time 22 years old, give or take, who had just graduated from Boulder. He had studied abroad in the US, came back to Vietnam. And then there was what would later become my future manager. And he didn't speak English very well at the time. We could communicate in basic stuff, basic coding stuff, but he wasn't great. But the Boulder guy, he spoke great English. The director spoke good English. And so then we went into the interview, and from my memory, it was basically they asked how I learned to code. And so I gave my little spiel about how I learned HTML and CSS and JavaScript through Free Code Camp, and how I spent all my spare time learning, because I also had to support myself. So at the time, I was teaching English to pay the bills, and then whenever I had free time, I was going through the Free Code Camp curriculum. And at that time, I'd finished the HTML section, I finished the JavaScript section, and then the React Free Code Camp, I found it kind of boring, so I kind of just started on the Scrimba stuff. But my level wasn't good, but they asked me some questions about CSS, like the common stuff, like how would you center a div, or what was the difference between the display block and inline, or something of this, or absolute versus relative, something like this. And I was doing okay, and then there was a question about asynchronous JavaScript, that I think I pretty much blew entirely. There was a question in React, like if you were going to call an API, which lifecycle method would you make that API call in? And I remember answering, well, I'm not 100% sure, but I think you would put that in the component did mount, because right, your component mounts, then you want to call the API. That was my answer at the time. And finally, the moment I had not been feeling very confident about getting the job, but the moment I thought I got a good chance is when we focused more on JavaScript algorithms. So we did whiteboarding, which whiteboarding is basically they give you some kind of DSA, data structures and algorithm problem, and you solve it on a whiteboard or a chalkboard in front of them. And so they asked me one DSA problem, which I think was something about a string, which I solved. I solved that one, and then they asked me another question, and it had something to do with sorting. It might have been like they gave me an array or they gave me a string and it was a sentence and I had to sort the words in the sentence from shortest to longest or something like that. And so I was thinking about the solution and I couldn't come up with the answer. I thought that I might need to use the reduce function in JavaScript, but I couldn't really remember if it was like I needed to do a minus b or exactly. But I knew it also wasn't reduce because we use reduce to get some like final value, but that's not for sorting. At the time, I didn't realize that you could pass in a custom callback function into the JavaScript sort. But when my future manager, when I couldn't get the answer, and I said, sorry, I'm not sure about this one. He said, well, you would just use the sort method. And I said, I had thought about that, but actually the sort method wouldn't work here because the sort method, you can't just take the length of a string and try to sort based on that, because the problem is if you try to do that in JavaScript, the sort method sorts via the alphanumeric characters. It doesn't sort via the actual sum, the actual quantity of the number. So for example, if you had 11 might come before 2 because of 1 comes before 2 or something along those lines. And when I said this, my future manager, he looked a little perplexed, but then the guy that had studied abroad, he searched and he said, hey, actually, he's right. And that gave me a lot of confidence that because somebody that was more senior than me tried to answer a question, try to give me an answer to a question, and I knew that that wasn't the right thing, but even though I didn't know what the right answer was, I could express my thoughts clearly and in a respectful manner. We could have a respectful dialogue. It wasn't me being a know-it-all. Because of that, that's when I thought, wow, I got a good chance at getting this job. And sure enough, I think it was a day or so later, I got an offer for my first software engineering job. At the beginning, my level was very bad, but I had a good attitude. I wasn't expecting a lot of money, and I tried to do everything I could that could make myself be an attractive candidate for companies. So I tried to make sure my resume was nicely formatted. I tried to be open to applying for anybody in any industry. And I tried to provide proof, not promises, about my work ethic. So if you went and you go look at my GitHub at Cam Cherdukian, you can look from 2019, 2018. Is it 2018? No, I think 2019. You can go look at 2019 and you can see boom, 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 boom. Every single day I had something I had called the Daily Learning Journal. And every single day I posted how much time did I spend learning. And I never, well, sometimes, once in a while I'd miss a day, but I almost never missed a day. And when you can document your journey, that makes companies more receptive to hiring you, because they see your consistency and they see the passion that you have for your craft. So even though you haven't reached the level where you are truly useful, they can see your trajectory and they can say, hey, we can pick this guy up at a discount, and he's not really useful yet, but we think he soon will get to a level where he could be. Well, I'm not going to do any more preaching. I just thought I'd share a story of my first interview as a software engineer. More than 5 years ago. So I hope my story had something of value in there for you. And I'll see you again in the next video.